All right, so hello everyone, and welcome back to the first PTC Talks for this year, where I am honored today by having Timo Sturm and Claire Aubertin, both managing directors from the Accenture Industry X team, for a session around sustainability, fueling R&D, and business transformation. But first, a very quick introduction by me. So my name is Torbjörn Peterson, and I'm the Alliance Manager here at PTC, leading the PTC Talks, where we invite customers and partners for some inspiration on digital transformation to see what is possible and how to make it all happen. And we are running these webinars on Fridays, same time, with topics around either manufacturing, services, or engineering. And you might find also the recordings from the past sessions at the registration site. And the agenda for today's session is first a very quick overview of PTC by me, and then Timo and Claire will run the show and touch base on a few challenges, how to address these, and then explain some of the business outcomes. And at the end, we are also having a Q&A session, so please keep your questions to the end. You may also put them in the chat during the session, and we will pick them up later on. Next slide, please, Timo. So just a very quick overview about PTC. So PTC is a global software company with over 40 years of innovation with a headquarters in Boston. And we are serving a lot of customers worldwide with industries such as automotive, life sciences, industrial, aerospace and defense, electronics and high tech, and retail and consumer goods. But PTC offers solutions to help business design and produce and operate and maintain their products through the product lifecycle. And to make it all happen, we are working through strategic partners like Accenture. So the show is yours, Timo and Claire. So over to you guys.
Very good. Thanks for the intro. So my name is Claire Aubertin. I'm leading the sustainability services for EMEA, and I'm joined here with Timo. Timo, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely, Claire. Timo Sturm, leading the engineering unit of Industry X that cares about the product and its manufacturing for our customers in ASG, Austria, Germany, Switzerland, as well as in Europe. And excited to be here with you, Claire, to discuss sustainability and the impact of R&D.
All right, very good. So given today's context and everything that has been changing over the past months and weeks with various geopolitical changes and Davos even last week, everybody's wondering, is sustainability still a thing? Should we care about it? What should we do about it? And what really matters? So I think this is the purpose of the discussion today. Well, I think if there is one thing that you should remember is, it's all around us, and we will talk more about this. We will also look at how it impacts the products, the life cycle of the products, and the traceability of these products, and what is the regulation forcing us to do today, and therefore the implications. How do you translate that into R&D, teams, processes, system architecture, and hopefully taking a few messages home with your teams and clients. So overall, if we look at sustainability today, well, the news that you may not be expecting is that it's here to stay. It's around us, and it will stay around us. Consumers want it, and regulation is forcing it. So at least two good points to actually start looking at it seriously. And what's really important is that it's not just one topic that we quickly fix and that moves on. It requires a system or systematic thinking throughout the entire value chain. So if we want to design greener, leaner, more circular products, we have to look at it everywhere. What is it that we do? How do we design it? And therefore, how do we research it? Which ingredients we'll use? Which raw materials we'll use? Where are they coming from? Which suppliers we are leveraging? So all the upfront of the value chain and all the down part of the value chain. So how do we manufacture it? Where does it go? Through which logistics and suppliers and distributors? Which customers ultimately? And how does it come back? What's the loop back? What's the circular aspect to it? How do we recycle, refurnish, and potentially reuse these parts for future designs? So it's a really holistic approach, which requires to look at it from a circular way, not from a linear perspective, whether it's from cradle to grave. And this is the change, right? So it's not a one topic, but it's a value chain change and therefore an enterprise change. And if we look at if we go to the following page and we look at an example, well, we will well, in auto it's already there. You know, we're not talking about a future concept. We're talking about 50% of all cars in China being electric. And it's the largest auto market on this planet today, right? So if this is what they are selling or buying, well, you know, it requires a drastic change of all the auto providers. You won't be surprised to see the two pictures here between a BMW and a Tesla. And the complexity that is attached to all the parts showing there. And maybe Timo can give you a few details. I think the point I want to make here is that sustainability is a horizontal thing that forces every single department and every single team to look at digital and innovation to basically conceive a new value chain and make things simple, linear, and consumer-centric. So Timo, maybe you want to give your 2 cents on this product view here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on the right side, I think that the picture depicts a BMW diesel engine, which is really top of the line, terrific engine. It's beautiful. I drove it myself. Well, we put in here development time 100 years. Obviously, that's a little bit exaggerated, but the know-how of 100 years of engineering went into that engine. And it's probably the best of the world. On the other hand, you see the Tesla, the new product, and it has 20 moving parts only. And yes, electrical engines have been used and around also for 100 years, but I would say a bit provocatively 10 years. It shows, well, it is a very different kind of engineering. Mechanically, 1,300 parts versus 20 parts, but also surrounding a lot more software in the Tesla. Electric battery systems and so on and so forth. Suddenly chemistry plays a huge role. I mean, when did chemistry play a role in developing an engine other than combustion? So you have to have a very different set of capabilities. And the other part is you have to be fast. You have to be really fast. Gradual evolution over a long time versus, oh my goodness, we need that product fast. And when discussing things with Claire beforehand, we discussed, well, that's automotive. Everybody knows it. What about consumer products? And I went to my fridge. My kids are just in town. I don't know if you see that. That's a package of milk. But if you see very closely, it's oat milk based on Hafer and oak. Now, it replaces basically normal cow milk. So for the consumer products industry, if you want to serve customers in the area of making drinks, for example, for coffee and so on and so forth, enjoyable, well, you better get away from your usual supply chain and think about processed wheat like oat and so on and so forth. Develop a new product that is serving that customer base. It's a barista edition, so it has a good foam. Well, think about what it means compared to traditional normal milk. Entirely new product serving exactly the same customer segment. And guess what? The market share is probably double digit. I don't have the precise statistics, but it's here to stay and it's here to be served in a very, very nice, profitable margin corner of the market. Back to you.
Yeah. So basically, we see that in every single industry, auto, consumer goods, industrials everywhere. And we must look at the sustainability regulation to basically be the starting point of the requirements and how we need to produce for tomorrow. And I would even argue that today's regulations won't be tomorrow's regulation. So we even need to be forced to foresee what's coming next. And the circularity, the traceability are now, but the requirements are hopefully only going to be going up, and therefore we need to project ourselves in what's the product of tomorrow. How should I be thinking about my product, taking into account all the regulations that you see here, from deforestation, so basically where do I source my product, and the traceability going back to the field, maybe the agricultural land that we sold the product from, everything around obviously the CSRD and things that are looked at corporate level. So that means that every single organization needs to compute data from all their plants, all their operations, all the suppliers, and aggregate that top up and be able to argument the raw materials, where they are sourced, and the and basically the whole supply chain. Obviously, there is the CBAM and everything around carbon borders. And basically, if you are in China, in Japan, and you don't comply with the European regulations, you simply cannot sell. That's as simple as that, right? And so the market is closed. It's no longer a discussion and a nice to have. Is a minimum requirement to be able to place your products. And knowing that Europe is also the lead on this topic, and we see the new corporate sustainability directive that have been launched in China end of last year, that are very, very similar to the CSRD in Europe. So thinking about the European regulation, how the European regulation is going to evolve, and taking that as the basic requirements for your future product is a must. There is no way to hide. It's here to stay. So it's either you get out of the market or you face it and use it as a differentiation today. So then if we go to the next one, and I'll pass it to you, Timo, and see on the implication it has on R&D and how do we get organized internally to face these challenges.
Absolutely, Claire. And for me, as a trained engineer, aerospace engineer, when I started the discussions, like, well, is it only about regulation, filling out some papers and ticking some boxes? No, it's absolutely not at all. The sustainability topic is, yes, might be regulated, but it's a complete new way of thinking about your product. It's not ending at the factory door, but it's a really end-to-end how your product is being used, is being utilized by your customer from the initial idea until it's disposed. You have to include your supply chain, and you might even offer services over the lifetime of your product to enhance it, to improve performance, to do value-adding services, not only, but also for sustainability purposes. The other part that struck me, and obviously it's embedded, but once you're asked by the friends of PTC, hey, why don't you speak about it? You're like, hey, yes, this example about the milk or milk replacement or the cars, this is a new product and a new product category. Yes, you're serving still the same customers coming from A to B, customer enjoying a cappuccino, but the underlying product is completely new. And it's new in a form and way that disrupts your entire product thinking as of today. And you have to do it fast. I mean, 10 years ago, Tesla was a nobody. Well, yes, they have some up and down, but BYD and the others, they're dominating the topic of what defines mobility. And the same is true for all kinds of products. I mentioned the the vegan alternative to milk, and you can go in almost every area. You need products, new products fast, that are more than just an evolution of your own product range. And obviously, as Claire defined, regulation is not only a nuisance, it's your entry ticket. And it's going to evolve, it's going to change. So being able to understand where your product comes from, to be able to access the data, the life change is key for your performance. So that's the challenge. How do you address and meet it? We think that R&D has to evolve. Now, I mean, if a manufacturing colleague sees that picture and says, whoa, it's a bit of much, and I agree. But if you are a little bit blunt, R&D of today basically says, okay, we need a portfolio of different products and that serve market segments, and we're done, and we're designing it and hand it over to our trusted colleagues to manufacturing. Be done. Next product that we're designing. Well, the future of R&D is you have to take into account an entire value chain up until disposal. And just let me comment on this third box, systems engineering. What the heck is that? Well, in a normal product evolution, everybody knows how to build a car, how to build a gadget, a machine, and it evolves. So the system boundaries are pretty well established and just ingrained in the people thinking and work. I remember a customer who's a cruise ship manufacturer. They had no access and role control in their development system because their colleagues worked for 20 years, 30 years in that form and way. Now suddenly you have a new product. You need suddenly a battery. You need software. You need new suppliers who contribute. And this system is totally complex. And really, you have no precedence. Systems engineering is the discipline to put the logical building blocks in place, simulate their interaction, and before you draw a single line, you have the boundaries well defined and you can iterate very quickly, speeding up your development, coming up with designs that are quick and fast to implement. And then I'm not going through all the different disciplines, but you see, if you take that view, you have to rethink the way R&D interacts with the remaining part. Let me focus on one more point, which is product in use experience. Again, we have automotive in front of us, but I just recently purchased a coffee maker, Swiss coffee maker, small startup, and they have completely rethought the cappuccino machine with a nice integrated circuit internally. And guess what? They're starting to say, hey, you can control this over your mobile phone. We can remote access you. Would you like to have an upgrade on that? We're reducing energy consumption even further because we optimize the heating cycles. How cool is that? Well, guess what? It's a Swiss company. It doesn't come for free. They charge me $20 to upgrade my thing. So it's not only maintaining and making the machine even more sustainable, it's also creating a revenue and income source. Again, that has to be thought through. And guess what? R&D is in the lead here. This is more complex, but also a lot more exciting, I think, for companies and the R&D teams. Moving on, we mentioned traceability and compliance throughout the value chain. And the requirements there are not known. The requirements for compliance for the regulations will evolve, and there will be new questions. What kinds of materials are you using? Are you using materials that come out of conflict areas? Who is doing the service on your product? What is the operation of your product so that you can recycle it properly? Give you one example. If you charge your car all the time on a high voltage, high powered charging station, having drained the battery to 0% and loading it with super high power to 100% and do that, versus you only drive your car from 80% down to 20%, you charge it overnight with a low current. At the end of the same kilometer range, one battery is at status X, and the other battery is 3 times as fit as the first battery. Now, if you want to resell that battery, for example, from home battery thing, it's very important to understand how the battery has been used over its lifetime to enable the reuse, perhaps in a different environment, and recycle it. The challenge is you have to really collect the data in a responsible way, obviously observing data regulations and all these topics, and make it accessible not only to R&D, but also to service, to the recycling, and so on and so forth, to bring that together. Our argument is it's not foreseeable, but the approach to tackle it is a modular architecture that supports these processes. Again, you see here the entire process from left to right: requirements engineering, systems engineering, the traditional R&D development with hardware development, electromechanical development, sheet metal bending. But you see software development, it's a little bit small box out of logical reasons. But in fact, most products have a double digit, if not the majority of its value created through software, embedded software. And then validation, which again serves the compliance and regulatory topics up to end-of-life reuse. Last but not least, you have to embed all that data into a product data backbone. Typically, ERP is a big part of that, lifecycle assessment tools, a cloud-based data lake to make use of that data, again, respecting privacy and respecting well-established tools here, but you have to combine it. By being modular and being open, I think our friends from PTC live that very well. It is also possible to take that and a stepwise approach. Doing a one-size-fits-all and you have to renovate everything, it's just not realistic. But by being able to start to manage the requirements with a system like Codebeamer, connecting that then to an MBSE tool, and then working with existing tools, existing CAD tools, or then converging towards a unified architecture can help that journey happen over time. Let's face the reality. It is a journey that you have to pursue, and selecting products and tools that work well, serve that area well, and can intersect and interact with the respective tools down the stream is essential to have a very, very effective way of working. Let me comment very quickly on software development and remark on AI here. Again, the combination of advances in continuous integration, continuous development, and so on and so forth has to be managed with requirements management of ALM and validation to ensure that the software development, which is typically much more agile, with the hardware development works. At the end of the day, you're shipping one product, so the integration between the traditional development, electromechanical topics, product, and so on and so forth, and the software development has to happen. And again, we have made very good experiences here with the software from PTC here, for example, Codebeamer, bringing things together in the validation stage. With that, I would like to come to an end and conclude our point of view here. It was a high-level area. Claire?
Yeah, I mean, I think you heard it many times now. We believe sustainability is here to stay. And so fact there is very little. So far, there is very little facts that come against that view. We also believe that this is a business opportunity more than just a regulatory requirement. So that's a really important point. And then obviously it affects the entire value chain. I think we mentioned it many times, and we need to be conceiving with the end in mind, thinking about how the consumer is going to be using the product. And then when it's finished, what do we do about it? Do we give it back to the retailers? Do we send it back? I mean, this whole change needs to be thought through very carefully to basically create new products. So it's all about innovation, obviously powered by data, digital solutions, technology everywhere. But this is about fundamentally new products for similar or different consumers, B2B or B2C, that create innovation, right? R&D is the orchestrator because this is where the conception starts. So we need to have all these perspectives in mind. So the entire value chain and the entire feedback from every single step from the usage, but also the manufacturing requirements, the speed of transport, and the weight of things. And there's many discussions around packaging of products, especially in consumer goods. Do we actually need packaging? And what sorts, in which format, and what do we do about it? So all of this is the responsibility of R&D. So that creates new jobs, new type of capabilities, new ways to organize our R&D practices, new governance within the organization. So it has implication in many different aspects, not just on the way we conceive products. So, and obviously, yes, modular and R&D architecture and everything, and this systems needed to implement it. But basically, we believe this is a much broader topic, and a real transformation for many of our clients that we see today. Timo?
So obviously, Claire, as an engineering, it's music in my ears. R&D is the orchestrator, is the leading things. and yes, I have a lot of respect for my colleagues in services in manufacturing. So it's a joint effort. Our point is, it's a chance, it's an opportunity, it's an exciting time to redefine our products and use the right tools for that. Was that important? Back to you.
Yeah, and maybe one last thing is, we also, with the size of our corporations, we have a responsibility to do the right thing for the generations to come. I know it sounds a bit cheesy, but I think we all have obviously kids or nephews, or small ones around us. And we really need to think about what kind of influence do we want to leave, and what kind of legacy we leave as well. So redefining what we produce and how we produce needs to be in our agenda as leaders and as managers of our own businesses. So back to you now.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Timo and Claire, for sharing this very exciting session here around this very super exciting, topic, of course, and very important. So everyone, open up your minds and ask any questions you might have and put them in the chat, and let's see what we could have for discussions here. But I think I had a few questions here, like who do you see being the key stakeholders, or titles or roles within an organization to be engaged in leading the sustainability strategies in the company? Who are the normal people that you are interfering with, sort of?
Okay, I give it a try. Maybe Timo, you have your. So I think it really this is a new topic, right?
Yeah.
It's a new topic. So like any new topic, there is no perfect formula, and every client is taking it in their own way, right? We see clients where they have sustainability officers. I think most large companies today have sustainability officers. You see clients where the sustainability officers is part of the ExCo, and you see clients where the sustainability officers is part of finance, others is part of operations, or is part of communication, depending on what they see and what they do with this topic, right? So that's point number one. But it really defines how meaningful and how important this topic is for a particular client. Topic number two is, as innovation, as digital, sustainability is a horizontal topic, as we just said, like end to end. Therefore, I would argue that you need a governance, obviously, but you need to involve every step of the value chain. And I strongly believe that it needs to come from the business. It needs to come from one business unit trying to do their own product differently. And therefore, I would argue the business lead of that particular business unit need to be the owner. It can't be just R&D or a CSO or procurement lead, but it needs to be the lead of the business thinking, okay, how much of my portfolio needs to be 100% green in the next 5 years? Is it 5, 10, 20%? And how do I change to address that? Yeah.
I would subscribe to that. I would argue it's not to be delegated away to a chief sustainability officer who collects airline miles and so on and so forth, but it's about, what is our product? And therefore, it has to be core of the owner plus the colleagues who really think about the product of the company, because that ultimately is the big change in sustainability. Sorry?
Right. Thanks, for good, answers. And I think, I'm just picking a few, other questions here, from the chat. So I had one from Phil, and his question was around, do you have any concerns around the world supply of rare earth elements? They seem to be located in areas of the world that are not friends of the West. So, could you elaborate a little bit about that, or?
In terms of is that a relevant topic in the respective markets?
Yeah, so if so, does this further drive the need of the recycling what we have, sort of?
I think one of the key insights is that sustainability might be a liked or not so liked label, but it's a huge tool and lever to address quite realistic topics. You could argue, well, there's regulation, we have to do it. Well, if you go into Chinese cities, it's quiet, it's clean. And that is a major driver. You could also say, well, recycling is a nice greenish thing. Well, it's a very cheap way to come to materials that are very precious and very key to go forward. I would argue that our old waste landfills should be mined again. The amount of raw materials that are super interesting, starting from gold and others, is probably much richer than in a lot of the mines that we extract with a lot of topics. So I think there are very good economic reasons to do that, and you don't need the label of quote unquote sustainability to engage.
Yeah, actually,
Thanks.
we've seen that when we put the word sustainability, consumers tend to be either very buying because they are advocates themselves, or afraid because they're going to be saying, oh, it's too expensive, I can't afford it. So we also have ways to assess how do you communicate the value of sustainability in a bit of a different way. So, for example, in the F&B business, it's all about health. It's about making more nutritious products. It's not about green or plant-based, or it's how do we communicate the benefits, the healthy benefits of this product, right? So that's where also, again, we need to take the marketing components in R&D, so that it feeds our thinking and bring these elements up when conceiving the products. Is that answering the question, or?
I do think you are actually, definitely. So, thanks, for the good answers. And I'm picking one other question here as well, and that is around, are there views on the size of business where sustainability is going to become an operational responsibility?
Well, I would argue any size, and especially small companies, because these are the disruptors. Yeah, and again, use an overused example, Tesla. I remember my time in Silicon Valley, Sand Hill Road. My office was across from Tesla. It was an obscure startup that put in laptop batteries to power a go-kart.
Yeah.
So guess what? They did it, and you can do that with all other things. I think operational responsibility is the owner. It's the product range. It's the value proposition of the company. And I think the large companies have to get their act together to not to be the follower, but to become the leader again.
Right.
And one more thought to that. If you look at the latest report from the World Economic Forum, which was published, I think, in December, so a few months back, on the risks of climate hazards. So basically everything about heat, flooding, deforestation, fire, you name it, right? Most of us here would say, how often does it appear now? Maybe, okay, twice a year, we see a big flood and all. If you look at insurance, there are loads of areas where, some businesses, some geographies, some assets are no longer insured. because it's too risky, right? So it forces you to say, okay, how much of my fixed assets are at risks? How do I need to manufacture in the future? And therefore, what kind of project do I need to conceive to have a lighter way of producing going forwards, whether I produce yogurts or planes? The fixed assets and the resilience, the business resilience question today is not a small one. 6% of EBITDA of European companies are at risk every year because of climate hazards. 6% of your margins.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think that forces reflections on how do you address it and how do you tackle it at the bare minimum.
Yeah, thanks. I will actually ask you one last question. I think it's quite, interesting and a little bit, related to what you actually said, Claire. But how can a business foster a culture of sustainability and innovation within their R&D teams to drive continuous improvement? It's a broad question, I know, but I think it's all about we are talking a lot about here that having a good kind of culture that really drives sustainability. How do you make that happen?
I think there is a contradiction in that question, because it says about continuous innovation. I think it has to be disruptive innovation.
Yeah.
And I think it's stepping back, using an old business school term. What is the job that we deliver for the customer? And the example that was used was about milkshakes and drinks. And the job of a milkshake is not to make somebody less thirsty, but it was, quote unquote, to satisfy a person during the commute, as a US-based example. And then if you look at that point as an R&D team that focus on its users, what is the job to be done? How do I entertain? How do I satisfy a person in a car in a boring commute? And that is a very different approach and question. And that opens up the question, okay, and let's throw in sustainability in that part. And I think that's a very different way of looking at things. And I think there's a great potential of innovation, creativity in our R&D departments. If you move from enhancing a product 0.03%, which might be a lot in some areas, to let's rethink the product and think about the job to be done. And again, this Oatly milk, the job to be done is an enjoyable cappuccino. And then it opens up the thing. It's like, hey, some people use nuts, peanuts to create that milk. Some people do whatever. And suddenly the space opens. So I think it's that kind of discussion workshops, which we call user-centered design. Step back, put the human being into the middle with an emphasis on being empathic and understanding that. And suddenly new ideas, new innovation focus on that. This user-centered design, started by IDEO in the Silicon Valley, is by now a very established R&D topic, seldomly really applied to that, but it naturally leads to alternatives that, by the way, are highly sustainable as well.
Just to follow up on that, we've done actually a study on human needs and how people define sustainability. We looked at all countries. And the interesting thing is, obviously, depending on where you come from, but also your type of activities and basically your personality, you define sustainability in a very different way. So for some people, it's to make sure it's ethically built. A product is, not using children to be conceived. For others, it's all about making it nutritious and healthy and, not impacting my health in any way. For others, it needs to be a collaborative and a societal impact, So we've looked at it and actually defined 6 archetypes of human needs and how every human needs or archetype defines sustainability. And I think this was really insightful because it tells you that actually there is science behind it. There are human psychology and consumer psychology attached to it. And again, this needs to be a data point. Ultimately, it needs to be an insight, a data point as anything else that feeds the R&D for better consumption of products. And this exists today, right? It's not when it's nothing like woohoo. It's basically deep consumer expertise, deep consumer insights that need to be considered as data, as inputs for R&D. So, you know, it's facts, just like anything else.
Super interesting. Thank you, guys. And time is unfortunately running out quicker than expected, as always. So many thanks, everyone, for joining. And of course, I mean, a special thanks, I mean, to you, Timo and Claire, for your fantastic session here. So with that, I wish you a fantastic weekend and hope to see you back already next week, actually, for a session on end-to-end order and workflow management by Schaeffler Group and Transition Technologies. So stay tuned and have a fantastic weekend, everyone. Take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.